क्या सुना है मैंने? 198 कंट्री के 1988 से 1100 साइंटिस्ट बोलते हैं कि 2030 के बाद 100 दिन में आने वाली बारिश 52 आवर्स में आके जाएगी। तब कुछ शास्त्रज्ञों ने कहा ये डरा रहे हैं, ऐसा होगा नहीं, लेकिन हुआ। क्या हुआ? इस साल दुबई में, दुबई का वार्षिक पर्जन्यमान 70 मिलीमीटर है, लेकिन एक दिन में दुबई में 170 मिलीमीटर बारिश हो गई। इसका मतलब देशमुख सर 2.5 साल की बारिश एक दिन में हो गई। आईपीसीसी बोलता है 100 दिन की बारिश 52 घंटे में होगी। इसका मतलब कुछ तो होने वाला है और बहुत बुरा होने वाला है। अब बुरा क्या क्या होने वाला है? 47 डिग्री टेम्परेचर होने के बाद ब्रेन, किडनी, हार्ट फेल होता है, ऐसा हमने सुना है। ये पूरा हाल पढ़ा लिखा है, ऑल आर इंटेलेक्चुअल्स, बरोबर। मैं आप सब लोगों को पूछना चाहता हूं, क्या ये सही है कि 47 डिग्री होने के बाद ब्रेन, हार्ट और किडनी फेल होता है, ऐसा साइंस में लिखा है? ये सही है ना? अगर ये सही है तो दिल्ली का टेम्परेचर 52.9 हो गया और दुबई का टेम्परेचर 64 हो गया। अब दुबई के लोगों को खत्म करना है देशमुख सर, तो मिसाइल डालने की जरूरत नहीं, 1 महीना लाइट बंद करो, वो बैंगन भुने गए सब भुने जाने वाले सब। ये सही है ना? अगर ये सही है तो फिर 2030 के बाद 40% अनाज का प्रोडक्शन, 40% दूध का प्रोडक्शन, 40% समंदर में की मछली का प्रोडक्शन कम होने वाला है। क्यों? तो हवा में बढ़ने वाले टेम्परेचर की वजह से। ये हमारे चैलेंजेस है, और अगर ये चैलेंजेस अगर है तो अब इसके ऊपर काम क्या करना पड़ेगा? तो मैंने जो देखा है, आप सब लोगों को एक बात बताना चाहूं, 1750 में ग्लासगो में जब पहला इंजन बना, जब 280 ppm कार्बन कॉन्सेंट्रेशन था, कार्बन का प्रमाण 350 चाहिए, अब हुआ है 422, और 450 में हमारा नामो निशान मिटने की शक्यता है। 450 ppm जिस दिन होगा, उस दिन मैंने ऐसा सुना है कि भारत के 12 शहर समंदर में डूबने वाले हैं। 450 ppm जिस दिन होगा, उस दिन मैंने ऐसा सुना है कि भारत के 12 शहर लोगों ने पैसा कहा, 450 ppm जिस दिन होगा, उस दिन मैंने किनारे, और दुनिया के सारे शहर लोगों ने पैसा डूबने वाले हैं। 50 ppm जिस दिन होगा, उस दिन मैंने किनारे, और दुनिया के सारे शहर लोगों ने पैसा डूबने वाले हैं। 50 ppm जिस दिन होगा, उस दिन मैंने किनारे, और तो मैं आपको एक बात बताना चाहता हूं, मैं बोर्ड ऑफ ट्रेड, बोट नाम की जो संस्था है, एक्सपोर्ट इंपोर्ट पॉलिसी तय करती है भारत सरकार की, उसके भी मैं गवर्निंग काउंसिल पे हूं। मैं BIS, ब्यूरो ऑफ इंडियन स्टैंडर्ड के गवर्निंग काउंसिल पे हूं। मैं MSME के गवर्निंग काउंसिल पे हूं, और मैं मुन्ना भाई हूं। पर फिर भी ये हूं, क्यों हूं पता नहीं मुझे, लेने वालों ने क्यों लिया है। ये जब मुझे लिया है तो मैं आप सब लोगों को एक बात बताना चाहता हूं कि उगम यहां पे है। मैं आपको एक विनती करना चाहता हूं कि अगर ये दुनिया अगर बचानी है ना, तो हमको कार्बन कम करना पड़ेगा, तापमान कम करना पड़ेगा, ऑक्सीजन बढ़ाना पड़ेगा, कार्बन कम करना पड़ेगा। और ये अगर करना है तो इंडस्ट्री में जो भी चीज अगर बनने वाली है तो वो सस्टेनेबल बननी चाहिए। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अब मैंने प्रपोजल दिया है भारत सरकार को, क्या है कि मेरे गांव के पास सोलापुर है, और सोलापुर में साल को 40 लाख मीट्रिक टन कोयला जलता है, उससे 1 करोड़ मीट्रिक टन हर साल CO2 तैयार होता है। 1 किलो कार्बन जलने से 2 किलो 800 ग्राम कार्बन तैयार होता है। 1 लीटर पेट्रोल जलने से 3 किलो कार्बन बनता है। अगर मेरे गांव के पास सालाना 1 करोड़ टन CO2 अगर पैदा होता है, अननेचुरल तो मेरे पोते की जिंदगी क्या होगी? अगर उसको अगर कम करना है तो मैंने एक काम किया, NTPC भारत सरकार के जो CMD है गुरप्रीत सिंह, उनको मैं सोलापुर लेके आया। उनको बोला मैं देश का पहला थर्मल 1 करोड़ मीट्रिक टन CO2 बनाने वाला, वो पूरे का पूरा सस्टेनेबल बनाएंगे, और हम बांस पे चलाएंगे, और उन्होंने मेरी बात मानी और उन्होंने घोषणा की कि 30% कोयले में हम बांस जलाएंगे। और आपको सबको एक बढ़िया बात मैं बताना चाहता हूं, आज मैं यहां से जाऊंगा, मुझे कल हमारे सीएम देवेंद्र फडणवीस साहब से मिलना है कि दुनिया की 30% गरज स्टील की गढ़चिरौली डिस्ट्रिक्ट बनाने वाला है, और वो गढ़चिरौली डिस्ट्रिक्ट में 3 तालुके ये लोहे के ये मिले हैं, खान मिले हैं, माइंस मिले हैं, और 9 तालुके बांस के हैं। तो 9 तालुके का बांस निकाल के 3 तालुके में लोहा बना सकते हैं, कोल की जरूरत है नहीं, ये बताने का काम मैं कल करने वाला हूं। मैं आप सब लोगों को एक बात बताने वाला हूं कि अगर आप इकोनॉमिक्स के हैं, एग्रीकल्चर के हैं और सस्टेनेबल की बात अगर सोचने वाले हैं, अगर आपको जीवित रहना है, मैं ये सारे जो मेरे पोती पोते के उम्र के बच्चे हैं, तुम्हारा जो फ्यूचर है, मैं आप लोगों को एक बात करना चाहता हूं कि तुम्हारा फ्यूचर क्या है। तुम अगर 450 पीपीएम में तुम्हारा क्या होगा मालूम है? एंटोनियो गुटेरस यूनाइटेड नेशन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के सेक्रेटरी जनरल है, उन्होंने कहा है तापमान बढ़ने का युग खत्म हुआ है, बर्निंग युग शुरू हुआ है, अब हमको क्विक एक्शन की जरूरत है। तो हम ऐसे सारे सम्मेलनों में क्विक एक्शन क्या होता है और क्या करना चाहिए, इसके ऊपर अगर हम ध्यान देंगे, चर्चा करेंगे, तो ही हमारा भविष्य है, वरना हमारा भविष्य अंधकार में है। अगर मैं जरा बुरा भला बोला होगा और ज्यादा भला होगा तो निर्गुड़े अगली बार भी बुलाओ, मैं और अगली बार और कम बोलूंगा, इससे भी कम बोलूंगा, और तुमको जो जो अच्छा लगेगा ना वो बोलूंगा। और अच्छा बोलने से हम सब तो कोई तो भी कड़वी बात करना चाहिए। अगर मेरी बात कड़वी लगी तो भी धन्य, नहीं कड़वी लगी तो भी धन्य, लेकिन सोचने का नजरिया बदलने का समय आया है। अब सारे लोग नजरिया बदलोगे, इतना कहते हुए यहीं रुकता हूं। जय हिंद, जय भारत।
भांडणातून प्रेम वाढतं हे आपण घरगुती नात्यांमध्ये बघितलेलं आहे। तसंच काहीसं पाशा पटेल साहेब आणि आमच्या नात्यामध्ये झालेलं आहे। भांडणाची जी परंपरा होती ती यादव साहेब, पोकरकर साहेब, गवळी साहेब यांनी सांभाळत माझ्यापर्यंत आली, आणि नंतर प्रेम जे वाढलं ते माझ्यावर सरांचं प्रेम वाढलेलं आहे। धन्यवाद सर। आपण कुशल कामगार ह्या शब्दाचा उल्लेख जो केलेला आहे आणि त्याची जी महती सांगितलेली ती महत्त्वाची आहे। ज्या फॅक्ट्स आणि फिगर सांगितलेल्या त्या आपण जनरली लक्ष देत नाही त्याच्याकडे, हम उसके बारे में सोचते नहीं है। जो बातें उन्होंने की है वो सच है, और ये भी बात सही है कि उनका कड़वापन जो है वो सामने दिखता है। मैं उनके साथ पिछले 7-8 साल से हूँ। उनका कड़वापन सिर्फ ऊपर से है, जो नारियल है फिर कटहल है उसके समान उनकी व्यक्तित्व है, वो अंदर से जितना डीपली किसानों के लिए, हम सब एकेडमिशियंस के लिए जितना अच्छा सोचते हैं उतना बोल नहीं पाते। मुश्किल है, थोड़ा सा जबानी कड़वी पहले से है तो वो नहीं चेंज हो पा रही है। लेकिन थैंक यू सर, आप यहाँ पे आए और हमें आपका विचार सुनने के लिए प्रोत्साहित अवसर मिला। थैंक यू। मिस सेरेमनी, प्लीज कंटिन्यू।
Yes, sir. Now, it is my great honor to call upon the Chairman, Commission of Agricultural Costs and Prices, and today's chief guest, Professor Vidyapith Sharma sir, to deliver the keynote address of today's conference. Please join me in welcoming Professor Sharma sir to share his valuable insights and vision. Sir, please.
Chairman, Maharashtra Agriculture Price Commission, and my dear friend Pasha Patel ji, Honorable Vice Chancellor, office bearers of Maharashtra Agriculture Economic Society, guests on the dais, distinguished participants, dear students, friends from media, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning to all of you. Let me first start with complimenting and congratulating the society, which has completed almost 37-38 years, and it's a very long journey, and I think they started from a very small scale, and today it has become your leading kind of a professional society and association in the field of agriculture economics in the state. And let me also congratulate them for celebrating this conference, which is the 25th conference, I believe. And the topic of this conference, the theme of this conference is extremely important, topical, and timely. So they are talking about two issues, innovations and entrepreneurship for rural prosperity. And I don't think there could be any, better topic for discussion, because when we are talking about rural prosperity, I think that rural prosperity would come primarily from our, agriculture and non-farm sector activities. And if I look at the state of Maharashtra, which is primarily an agrarian economy and very diversified, agroclimatic conditions in terms of cropping pattern, so I'm sure the deliberations of this conference would help in shaping the policy and come up with some actionable points. Indian agriculture has also traveled a long distance. So we were, net importers of almost all agriculture commodities in the decade of 50s and 60s. And today, India is among the top 10 agriculture exporters in the world. And I think that's a great achievement on the part of our sector. And the credit goes to our hardworking farmers, our research and development institutions, including ICAR and state agriculture universities, and the very enabling policy and environment and the strong support from the government, both the central government and the state government. So I think we must, take pride in this achievement, which is extraordinary. So today we are one of the largest producers or consumers or exporters in many agriculture commodities. And we are also, setting new records year after year in terms of our production, starting with you talk about cereals, you talk about pulses, oilseeds, horticulture, livestock or fisheries. And last year, 23-24, we had record production of food grains at about 332 million tons, rice at almost 138 million tons, wheat we crossed 113 million tons, and oilseeds more than 40 million tons last year. But last year there was a small dip. But I would like to mention one very specific example of our pulses revolution. In up till 16-17 or 17-18, our total production of pulses was in the range of about 16 to 17 million tons. And we were struggling at the 17-18, 16-17-18 million tons for a long time. And last year in 22-23, 21-22, our total production of pulses crossed 27 million tons. So you can see a journey from 16-17 million tons to 27 million tons. And I think three interventions played an important role. The first one, we were able to ensure quality seed availability to the farmers. So there was no major kind of a technological intervention, but whatever the technologies, whatever varieties we had, we were able to provide it to the farmers. So we had very concerted efforts and very special focus on ensuring quality seed availability to the farmers. The second important intervention in pulses happened in terms of the pricing. So as a commission, we made it sure that we provided the highest increase in MSP for pulses, and that also led to significant increase in the prices, the market prices of pulses. And one is you announce MSP. Second is it's also important to ensure and create that confidence among the farmers that if the market prices fall below MSP, there is somebody who is going to intervene in the market. And I think the government of India initiated very strong procurement policy, procurement support for the pulses. So you have seen that in the last 6-7 years, 7-8 years, there is a very steep increase in market prices as well as the MSP of pulses. And the third important intervention which happened is that we were importing large quantities of pulses at zero import duty. There was a free import of almost all pulses. But if we want to ensure better prices and remunerative prices to the farmers, I think we need to create fair competition. So the government cautiously decided to have, higher import duties. In certain cases, the government put quantitative restrictions on imports, and in certain cases, there was a complete ban on import of pulses. So these three important pillars of better quality seeds in terms of technology, Second is ensuring better prices, remunerative prices to the farmers. And the third is the appropriate trade policy led to this, revolution in pulses. Similarly, if you are look at horticulture sector, we crossed almost 350 million tons. In fact, it was 353 million tons of total horticulture production in 23-24. Similarly, if I look at milk is almost 240 million tons. Fishery is again a very significant increase. So I think we have made very significant progress in terms of our production. But you would find there has been a dramatic shift, or I would say a paradigm shift in our agriculture policy in the last 7-8 years. If you remember, in February 2016, our Honorable Prime Minister shared his vision of doubling farmers' income. And I think that was a turning point in the history of Indian agriculture. So our focus shifted from production-centric approach to more focus on farmers' welfare and income. So today, when we are designing any policy, if we are implementing any policy, I think our focus is farmers' welfare. So I think that was a dramatic shift in our agriculture policy, both at the central level and that percolated down to the state level, where we shifted our focus from having a production-centric approach to farmers' welfare-centric approach. And I think that's going to have very, very significant impact on the welfare of our farmers. The second is, structural transformation is a part of development process. So it has happened in almost all countries, and India is no exception. So our structural transformation is happening at two levels. One is at the economy level, and you must have seen that in the last, let's say, 3 to 4 decades, what is happening, there's a change in composition of our national, economy. And as I said, as a part of structural transformation, the share of your primary sectors, which primarily comprises of your agriculture and allied subjects, that declines, and our share of agriculture has also declined from our 40% about 4 decades back. Today, our share of agriculture in the national GDP is about 17-18%. But I think the real concern is that there has to be a commensurate decline in the dependence on agriculture. Even today, when I look at the rural areas, almost 60% of our rural workers are still employed in agriculture sector. If I look at, both rural and urban, close to 50% of our workforce is engaged in agriculture. So if we have only 17 to 18% share of agriculture in the national GDP, and if almost half of our workforce is engaged in agriculture, and if I look at the dependence on agriculture is more than 2/3 of our total population. So that's going to create a lot of problems. So that means we have a surplus people in agriculture, we have surplus labor in agriculture. So there's a need to take out the surplus labor from agriculture, because otherwise the productivity on per unit worker basis would remain low. So the real question is that where should we engage these people? Because if I look at the employability of our agriculture workers or workforce engaged in agriculture and services sector, they are not employable because that requires very specialized skills. If I look at the industrial sector, again industrial sector to some extent, yes, but large part of industrial sector is again much more specialized and skill-based employment. So what do we do? So we'll have to engage this surplus labor or these people in the non-farm sector. So whether it's handicrafts or handlooms or any rural enterprise-based employment generation. And that's the reason the government is talking about skilling people. So if we are able to skill these people, if we are able to create value addition in the rural areas, I think that would really create more opportunities, that would create more professional manpower requirement in the rural areas, and that would reduce our dependence on agriculture. But I think we must keep in mind, today I think the biggest problem with our agriculture is that everybody has become expert in agriculture. He or she may not be able to distinguish between wheat and rice. I'm not talking about wheat and barley. And they all talk about agriculture. And you would find in certain debates in the media, they would talk about that agriculture contributes less than 20%, and so that means that importance of agriculture sector has declined. I think they are completely wrong. For me, if the 16-17% GDP does well, it takes care of my half of our population. It takes care of almost more than 2/3 of my rural population. So as a policy planner, my focus would be on those sectors which create larger impact, socio-economic and socio-political impact. So if agriculture does well, I think it's much more inclusive development rather than focusing on other sectors. But there are several challenges. The second part is, if you look at the agriculture, even within agriculture, you would find there's a whole lot of transformation which is happening. So some of this transformation is demand-driven, and some of this transformation is supply-driven. So one is, if I look at, today the consumption side of it. So when I talk about, broadly, if I look at the mega trends which are driving this transformation within agriculture is, one is our rising income and demographic features. So, as our income rises, I think our food habits also undergo a tremendous kind of a change, and you would find it has happened in the last at least 2 to 2.5 decades. And in case of demographic factors, I think 3 important factors. One is, our population is rising, that's a known factor. But the speed at which our urbanization is increasing, and we cannot stop urbanization. So when there is a rapid urbanization, I think the way we eat, the kind of food we eat, it completely changes. So even today, if you go to the rural areas, their food habits are entirely different from food habits in the urban areas. So urbanization is having impact on what we consume and what we produce. Second is, there is also rising or increasing participation of women in workforce, which is a welcome step, and I think we must appreciate that. But you would also realize that when both husband and wife, they are working, I think they would have less time for cooking at home. So you would find the outside dining increases, the demand for ready to eat and ready to cook kind of stuff increases, and that creates a whole lot of opportunities for agriculture sector. So we need to move towards more value addition, we need to move towards more high value agriculture. So there's a shift in consumption pattern, both in rural areas and urban areas. I don't know how many of you have read this household consumption expenditure survey which came out very recently. That very clearly shows that if I look at the composition of my expenditure, food expenditure, in rural areas, the share of expenditure on cereals was about 32-33% in rural areas in 2004 and 5, and 23-24 that has come down to about 10 to 11%. So 33% to 11%. And if I look at urban areas, the share of expenditure on cereals has declined from about 18-19% to less than 10%. It's 8%. So which are the segments, which are the the components of our consumption basket which are rising? It's fruits and vegetables. It's your livestock products like milk and dairy products, egg, meat and fish. And the most striking change has happened in the processed food and beverages segment. Rural areas, if I look at 2004-2005, only 8 to 9% of total food expenditure was on beverages, processed foods and these items. Today, even in rural areas, about 20% of my expenditure is on processed food, beverages and that segment. It's the second largest component in terms of my consumption basket in rural areas. If I look at the urban areas, it has increased from 11% to close to 24%. And it's the largest component in my consumption basket. So the positive side of that is that there's a shift in consumption pattern towards the high value segment like horticulture, it's livestock sector, it's fisheries and it's processed foods. And that provides us a huge opportunity, and a state like Maharashtra, which is predominantly a horticulture state, and the horticulture revolution started from this state. So it's a great opportunity for the farmers, it's a great opportunity for the state to capture that market, not in the state, but I think outside the state. Second is, when the demand for your processed food is increasing, the demand for your livestock products is increasing, I think there's a huge opportunity in terms of value addition. So when we move up the value chain, if farmer is a producer of raw material, if he also gets into the value addition and the finished products, I think his share in the consumer rupees also goes up. But we need to, the problem with this high value agriculture is that it's more perishable. You talk about horticulture, talk about livestock, talk about any other, high value segment, they are all perishables. And the kind of infrastructure which we need, whether it's a cold storage or it's a, the transportation or other logistics, I think it requires a different set of, infrastructure. Because today our market infrastructure or the post-harvest infrastructure is geared towards more non-perishable commodities. So we need more investment in post-harvest management and infrastructure, creating more cold chains, creating more, the logistics which meet the requirement of this perishability. And I think it's difficult to expect that kind of investment from the public sector, because public sector should make investment in the basic infrastructure. So the point is that we need to attract more private sector investment. And private sector investment would come if it's profitable for the private sector. And I think profit is not a bad word for anybody. And today I think the mindset which is being created in the public is that no, private sector is bad for agriculture. But let me tell you, our agriculture sector would not grow without the participation of private sector. Today, if I look at the total capital formation or the investment in agriculture sector, the largest part comes from the farmers. And if I look at the pure, corporate sector investment, that the pure private sector investment, it's less than 2%. And no sector can grow with less than 2% private sector investment. So there's a need to improve that investment from private sector, whether it's in creating of post-harvest management or its infrastructure or value addition. So I think our strategy has to be more participation of private sector so that we take it from 2% to 5 to 10 or 15%, and that would generate more, opportunities for the farmers. The third important, driver for this, growth story of our Indian agriculture is the trade opportunities. You remember when we signed WTO, we opened up our economy in the early part of 90s. I think the first thing which came to our mind or everybody's mind was that agriculture sector take a big hit. But you must be surprised to know that today our agriculture exports have grown manifold. If I look at last even 5 to 7 years, our agriculture exports have almost doubled. And our agriculture imports are much smaller than exports. So agriculture is a trade surplus, sector. So our farmers have benefited from opening up of our trade. So trade is a good opportunity, and trade has given that trigger for agriculture development in the country. Another is we also need to move out of that mindset that agriculture is a subsistence. ये subsistence के लिए है. Because our agriculture has to become more commercial, our agriculture has to become more market oriented, it has to become much more industrial. And as I said, that as we move above the ladder, I'm sure the opportunities for our farmers would be much more. Again, I'll cite a simple example of, you remember Maharashtra is again, one of the major producers of sugar. And I remember when I joined for my first tenure in 2016, I think the major challenge for our commission was to see that we had huge problem of cane price areas. Because our sugar prices were depressed, we were not competitive in the global market. So sugar mills were in serious trouble. They didn't have money to pay to the farmers. Maharashtra had less problem, but most of the other states had serious crisis, and there was a lot of unrest among the farmers. There was a lot of concerns among the policy makers, and we didn't have any solution for that. And one of the the most important and historic decision of the present government was that they decided that we would allow sugarcane juice and sugar to be diverted for ethanol production. And again, you would find that there were a lot of hue and cry from certain quarters that it would make a compromise with our national food security. And you would find today our sugar industry has become one of the most vibrant industry. You won't find any problem with our cane price areas. Our sugar industry is, if you look at their balance sheet, I think they are pretty, solid. And our ethanol production, which was about 36 crore liters about 10 years back, we crossed almost 650 crore liters of ethanol. So today, depending upon the market situation, if ethanol market is more profitable, I as a sugar mill can divert my sugarcane juice or sugar for ethanol production. If sugar is more profitable, I'll divert for that. So this is one of the examples which has given tremendous boost to our sugarcane farmers. So today our sugarcane farmers are happy, our sugar mills are financially, stable. So another, as I said, that the driver or the megatron which is driving this revolution is the industrialization of agriculture, and I think we need to take this step forward. And I'm sure the next, revolution is going to happen in maize, because the government has decided to allow use of maize for ethanol production, and there have been a lot of ethanol, grain-based distilleries which have come up. And you would find in the last 3 to 4 years, the maize prices have gone up. Otherwise, the major crisis with the maize farmers was that they were not getting even MSP. The market prices used to be much, much lower than MSP, because there were only two segments. One was the poultry feed industry, and second was the starch industry. And that demand was also more or less saturated. But with the permission to allow use of corn for ethanol production, I'm sure our corn sector is going to take a big, step forward. So that's again an example of your industrialization. Another driver is the technological disruptions in this sector. So if we look at our long history, starting with, green revolution, then came your yellow revolution, then came your golden revolution. And even in the last, 2.5 decades, we had, one is the maize revolution, which was primarily driven by private sector, with the introduction of single cross hybrids. Second was the cotton revolution, which was also driven by technology, BT cotton. So we had a great success in cotton from 2002, 2003 to 2014. But last 10 years, we are again struggling with, there's a decline in area under cotton. There's a decline in productivity of cotton, because we didn't have any major technological intervention in cotton sector for the last 10 years. And the third, as I mentioned, is the pulses revolution. But I think our future technological disruptions which are going to happen in this sector is not these traditional technologies. I think artificial intelligence, your blockchain, satellite-based technologies, they would revolutionize this sector. Today you can see that the application of your fertilizers and application of pesticides with drones. And again, women empowerment, drone didis. Look at the precision agriculture. Look at the use of technology in terms of artificial intelligence for the detection of your diseases, detection of your pest attack. So I think the next stage of this revolution is going to come from these newer technologies along with the traditional technologies. That it has to be a mix of both. And I'm sure, looking at the young minds, this sector has a great potential as a profession. This sector has a great potential as an entrepreneur. So these are all goodies about this sector. But I think we are also facing huge kind of challenges. Some of the challenges were mentioned by Ms. Pasha Patel. I think the biggest challenge for us is going to be, some estimates indicate that by 2050, we need to feed almost 10 billion people. So if we are talking about feeding 10 billion people globally, we need to produce at least 70 to 80% more production. And we also know that when we need to produce this 70 to 80% additional production, we are also facing serious crisis of, all the resources, production resources, start with land or water or labor. All the production resources are becoming scarce day by day. There's a competition for land, for agriculture and non-agriculture purpose. For water, there's a competition between agriculture and non-agriculture. There's also deterioration, there's also degradation of land and water resources. So how do we meet that challenge of feeding 10 billion people by 2050? And on the top of that, the climate change and climate change induced these weather shocks. You have uncertainty about rainfall. You have heat waves. You have excess rains. You have droughts. So the predictability of our weather is becoming extremely difficult. So with this kind of a climate change and climate change induced weather shocks, it becomes much more complex. The second, the major concern for us is the Honorable Prime Minister has talked about it on several, platforms, our high dependence on imports for edible oils. Today, we import almost 60% of our total consumption of edible oils. And for a country like India, so much dependence on, global markets is also not desirable. It's neither desirable nor feasible. Again, I'll give you a simple example of how the international markets behave. If I look at our imports of edible oils, on an average, we import about 15 to 16 million tons of edible oils every year. And our import bill, which used to be about 75,000 crores rupees about 4 years back, in fact, that went up to 1.67 lakh crores. So the quantity remained the same, but our import bill increased almost double or more than double. So that means there is so much fluctuation in the international prices of these commodities, particularly the edible oils. So that calls for, certain kind of introspection in terms of how do we, improve our domestic production. Second is, as I said, that this pulses is a success story, but you would also find that in the last couple of years, there has been an increase in our imports, and last year we imported almost close to 50 lakh metric tons of pulses. And the preliminary estimates indicate that this year, 24-25, we would be, importing maybe in the range of 50 to 55 lakh metric tons. But that increase in imports is primarily because of increase in our consumption. So our consumption has gone up. So we need to reduce our, dependence on imports for both the edible oils and pulses. And I think that provides, again, a great opportunity for our farmers, particularly from Maharashtra, which is, very diversified agroclimatic conditions. And they can grow pulses, they can grow oil seeds, and they can contribute significantly. And government has taken several initiatives. I'll talk about that a bit late. Second is, I think, the small and fragmented farm. Today, labor is becoming scarce. Even if labor is available, I don't think labor is willing to work on farm. So they can work on a construction site, they can do any kind of a petty work, but I think when it comes to the working on farm, that's the last priority for them. So that means we need to look at, farm mechanization in a big way. So how do we deal with that? Because our average farm size is about 1 hectare. And if I talk about, let's say, the marginal farmers, which is almost 2/3 of our total farming community, their average farm size is less than 1 acre. And even that 1 acre is not at one place, that's fragmented at least 3 to 4 places. So how do I expect a farmer who has, let's say, 0.5 acres of land to make investment in irrigation, to make investment in mechanization, or any, land development? So the solution lies in terms of how do we aggregate, how do we make these technologies scale neutral. Another, the challenge for us is low productivity and high yield gaps. So one is, I don't want to compare our productivity levels with China, US, or developed countries, but look at the, productivity gaps across different states and even within states across different regions. And second is, those who are from economics background, they would, or even from agronomy, you must have heard about yield gap analysis. So yield gap is basically, I come up with a technology, your institute, your university has come up with several technologies. So the potential yield of that technology is, let's say, X tons per hectare. But when we take it to the farmers, this yield is X minus something. And today, if I look at different crops across different seasons, our yield gap varies from almost 20% to 100%. So that means there's a technology which is available, but we are not able to take that technology to the farmers. We are not able to educate farmers in terms of scientific package of practices. So the easy route for us would be to look at that, why that yield gap is so high, and how do I reduce that yield gap? Is it extension service which is lacking, or is it accessibility of the farmers for a particular technology? So I think we must do that analysis. I would request the Agriculture University to do that analysis for major crops and find out the reasons and set a target for bridging that yield gap in terms of, because you don't need new technology, that technology is already available, but how do we take it to the farmers? Another is, as I said, the global agriculture markets are very volatile. Price of your, let's say, edible oil, you talk about any edible oil, soybean oil could be, $400 per metric ton. It can go up to $1,600 per metric ton. So that's the kind of volatility. You take any agriculture commodity. So in order to insulate from those volatile global markets, because of our sheer size, we need to figure out that how do we reduce our dependence on imports. And I think there are 4 important pillars of agriculture development. I always talk about it. Some of you must have heard about these pillars. But I again want to emphasize on these 4 important, as I said, the pillars of our agriculture development. It's like a table. You have a table which has 4 legs. And if one of the legs is unstable, I think that the whole table becomes unstable. It's true for a chair or anything. So these 4 pillars need to work in unison. And the first pillar is, I think, the technological change. So technology could be in terms of your better quality seeds. It could be in terms of mechanization. It could be in terms of improving your water use efficiency, because the water is becoming the most scarce resource. Or it could be in terms of post-harvest management and value addition. So technology has to be a major driver for growth of any sector, and agriculture is no exception to that. So we'll have to work towards improving our technological interventions, and it again calls for private sector participation. So we must have for seed. So we have a large number of varieties which are being released by the public system, whether it's the State Agriculture University or the ICR system. But how many of those varieties are reaching farmers? Because if I talk to the Agriculture University, they'll say that breeder seed production is my responsibility. So who does foundation seed or who does certified seed, I don't know. So we all work in silos. So why can't we have a very strong public-private partnership? I would put public-private and farmers partnership. So we create the seed value chain. So if I produce a breeder seed, I must have a plan for producing foundation seed. I must have a basic infrastructure. It's irrigation development. It could be a rural roads. It could be rural connectivity. And I don't think private sector would make investment in irrigation projects. Private sector would make investment in constructing rural roads, or they would make investment in a public good, because they can't internalize all your benefits. So I think that's the basic responsibility of the public sector, to provide that basic infrastructure like rural connectivity in terms of irrigation development, providing electricity in the rural areas for the farmers. But I think the market infrastructure which I'm talking about is in terms of creating post-harvest infrastructure, grading, packing, or value addition, or storage and warehousing, or cold storage, or logistics. That should primarily come from the private sector. And as I said, that with 2% private sector investment, it's difficult to meet that requirement. So we must introspect at the state level, because agriculture is a state subject, to see that why that private sector investment is not happening. You have almost all big companies in the state, but still our private sector investment is low. Is it a policy which is a stumbling block? Is it the profitability that investment is not profitable for the private sector? So we as a policy maker, as a policy planners, within the state, I think we need to figure out why that private sector investment is not happening. If it's a policy, policy problem, we must have a relook at the policies. Why can't we change policies which are more conducive for attracting that investment? If it's a profitability, why can't we make it profitable? So I think we need to find out, we need to figure out that why this private sector investment is not happening. So the second important pillar is infrastructure development, both the basic infrastructure and the market-based infrastructure. Institutions. And if you remember, because I could see, very young minds here who are, I think they must have born after 2000. Our extension system, or I talk about the rural development, or I talk about the extension services, our extension system was so strong in the 60s, 70s, 80s. I think we could take all technologies to the farmers. But today our extension system is completely collapsed in almost all states. More than 50% of the posts are vacant. Second important was our, the rural institution like primary agriculture credit societies. If you look at the presence of PACs, I think they are present in almost every nook and corner of our country. and they have contributed significantly for the development of our agriculture and rural sector in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. But I think after that they also became, more like the sick kind of institutions. They were important instruments or important institutions for providing the fertilizers, providing credit, providing all kinds of services to the farmers. But today they are not so strong. So we need to, strengthen these institutions, whether these are PACs or these are, new institutions like farm producers organizations or farm producer companies or any other form of organization which is required to make agriculture sector more, developed. Similarly, we are talking about micro irrigation, or we are talking about mechanization. But individual farmers, they won't be able to, have farm machinery, whether it's a tractor or it's a large kind of, machinery. So we need to create those institutions like, as I said, FPOs or maybe custom hiring centers, which can own that machinery, and it could be on the rental basis, which could be given to the farmer, because then he can use it for an hour or maybe 2 hours based on his or her requirement. So we must, focus on strengthening our institution, whether these are extension services or these are, the credit institutions or any other, institution which support agriculture sector. Finally, the most important is right kind of incentives to the farmers. Farmer can produce anything. You tell him what is to be produced or what the market requires, he is able to produce. But he must get remunerative price. And as I said, that when we're moving towards more perishables, I think there are a whole lot of problems with the pricing. Again, the government has done a lot of things in terms of ensuring better prices to the farmers. As a commission, we have in the last 10 years, there has been a very significant increase in the minimum support prices. And there has been also very significant increase in procurement of most of agriculture commodities. Because prior to 2014, you would find the procurement was only for rice and wheat, and again restricted to few states. Today our rice procurement is happening almost 10 to 12 states. Wheat procurement is happening in almost all major wheat producing states. Pulses and oilseeds which were never procured or procured in smaller quantities, today our procurement of pulses has gone up significantly. But again, in perishables, in fact we have a market intervention scheme. So if the prices of certain perishables fall below certain level because of excess production or because of less demand, there's a market intervention scheme. But in order to make that effective, I think the participation of states is important. Because central government can't do everything. It has its limited bandwidth. For example, I'll give you a simple example of soybean this year. When market prices fall below MSP, I think it also pains us. Because the farmer, what's the point of announcing MSP if we are not able to honor that? So there's a very strong commitment from the government of India. But I think we need much more effective participation of the states. I'm not singling out any state, I'm talking about state as a whole. I'll give you a simple example of soybean, that's what I was talking about. This year the market prices of soybean were ruling below MSP. And the only thing was that the state governments like Maharashtra or Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka, Telangana, Rajasthan, whichever state, they requested the central government that we would like to procure because we want to intervene in the market where the prices are much lower. And government of India immediately sanctioned that quantity that you can procure it from the market because we want to ensure better prices to the farmers. But in order to procure that soybean, I need to have procurement centers. I need to have a warehousing and storage facility. If I procure that, where should I store that? And you would find most of the states were, except Telangana, rest of the states, whether it's Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra or any of the states, they were not able to procure even the quantity which was sanctioned to them. So the limited point which I would like to make is that we need to create these institutions, we need to create those procurement centers. Once we procure that, we need storage and warehousing. So do we have warehouses in our state? Where are they located? So our request to the state governments is that we need to work as a team And I think we need to do that kind of a mapping, which are the kind of a crops which are grown in our state, which are the crops which need to be procured, and what kind of logistic infrastructure is required in terms of storage or in terms of other facilities. And one of the problems with our farmers is that he is always in a distress. Whenever he harvests his crop, I think he would like to sell, or she would like to sell it in the market immediately. So he'll bring his produce or her produce which is not conforming to your fair average quality standards. So there's a moisture content which is high. Maybe there is more foreign material in that. If you expect farmers to clean it and dry it, that becomes difficult. So I think we should create that infrastructure at the village level. We can provide dryers, we can provide basic grading infrastructure, and create that aggregation center at the village level. So once we create that institution which I was talking about, whether it's PACS or FPO or any other formal or informal group, and strengthen that infrastructure, our farmer would be empowered, because then he would be able to take his produce to the market which is of a good quality. So these 4 pillars of technology, institution, infrastructure, and right kind of incentive, they should work in tandem. I'm saying we should not work in compartments. Sometimes what happens that procurement is the responsibility of cooperation department, or it's a responsibility of marketing department. Technology, it's a part of agriculture. Infrastructure is a part of something else. So I think we need to really remove those boundaries. We need to dismantle those boundaries, those silos, and we need to work as a unit. Government of India has done several things in the past, so I'll not repeat all long list of the initiative which the government has done is, but I would like to mention which has happened in the last, let's say, 1 year or even less than 1 year. So the first thing which, as I said, the Honorable Prime Minister said that we must be Atmanirbhar in pulses, we must be Atmanirbhar in edible oils. And in order to achieve that stated objective, it's not that it's a statement. It's also supported by the required kind of funding. So the Government of India launched National Mission on Edible Oils, which is worth more than 11,000 crores of rupees. And the objective of that is to reduce our dependence on imports and increase our Atmanirbharta. Second is, you would find in the recent budget, I think it's the first time in the history of our country that the budget started with agriculture. You would find that all our honorable finance minister, they used to talk about the macro numbers. But this is the first budget where the honorable finance minister talked about agriculture. So in order to achieve Atmanirbharta in pulses, so she announced the mission on Atmanirbharta in pulses and allocated 1,000 crores of rupees for that. There's also a unique initiative in this budget, which was the Pradhan Mantri Dhan Dhanya Yojana, which is just like aspirational districts. So targeting our 100 districts which have low productivity, which are less developed from agriculture point of view, and with this targeting of these 100 districts, I think we would reach what 1.7 crore farmers. And that's a huge opportunity for the states to participate in that. Another is, fruits and vegetables. So we have always a problem, whether it's tomato, onion, potato, or any other vegetable. So there's again a special, mention, and there's a special program for, this vegetables and, allocated in the recent budget. Seed is the most critical input. And realizing the importance of seed, there's a national mission on high-yielding variety seeds or hybrids. Again, there's the allocation of 500 crore rupees for that. But as I said, that seed has to move from top to the bottom. So it should not stop at breeder seed. It should not stop at foundation seed. It should go from breeder to foundation, foundation to certified to the farmers. Cotton, again, very important crop from Maharashtra point of view. And as I said, for last year, we have been struggling with this cotton crisis. So recognizing the problem with cotton sector, the government announced this mission for cotton productivity. And that's again a huge opportunity for the state governments and the other associated organizations to take advantage of that. There's been a long-standing demand of our farmers that the limit on Kisan credit card was 3 lakh rupees. And for a pretty long time, it remained at 3 lakh rupees. In the budget, she announced that it would be increased from rupees 3 lakh to rupees 5 lakh. I think it's a great kind of a relief to the farmers. Another is, direct income support, PM Kisan. So if you talk to the urban people who have never been to the rural areas, who never know what, farmer or what the agriculture is, they say कि 6,000 रुपये में क्या होता है, 6,000 रुपये कुछ नहीं होता है. But you go to a rural area. I would request your students to go to the rural areas. I don't know whether you have any program for, otherwise there's a need to have rural immersion for our students, because today most of our students, they come from the urban background. Even if they are from rural areas, they are all, migrate to the urban areas primarily because of, good education in the urban areas. So if you talk to a, real farmer, I think he says that 6,000 is a great, relief for him or her. When he or she gets 2,000 rupees, he or she can buy seed from the market, he or she can buy fertilizers from the market. So his dependence on informal sources of credit, where the interest could be about, ranging from 24% to maybe 40-50%. So it's a great relief to the farmers, our small and marginal farmers, this PM Kisan. Similarly, you have, whole lot of other institutions. So we are talking about, value addition. So we have, special program on this PM Kisan Sampada Yojana. We are talking about animal husbandry. So there's the Animal Husbandry Infrastructure Development Fund. There's the PM Matsya Sampada Yojana for development of fisheries sector. So we have, whole lot of, initiatives by the government of India. But I think we need very strong support and, association with the state governments, with the farmers, and with other organizations. And I'm sure that all these issues would be deliberated in this 2 days conference. And we look forward to the proceedings of your conference, which should be of practical utility. Because sometimes what happens, the problem with our researcher is this, that we produce almost 200, 300 page kind of a report, and I don't think anybody would have time to read that. So come up with, 2-page, 3-page kind of a bullet point, what needs to be done. Because everybody knows the story. But the important is that what has to be done and how it has to be done. Whether the recommendation which we are making, is it doable? Is it practically feasible? So I'm sure you would deliberate on all these issues which we have talked about here, and we would be able to, contribute to the development of this sector. And again, I would urge upon all, the state government, the central government, the farmers, the associations, the private sector, and all development, organizations working in this space to work together as a team and look at the welfare of our farmers. As I said, that farmers' welfare is going to be at the center stage of all the policies we must keep in mind. So our commitment to the farmer is very strong, and there's absolutely no compromise on that. So I would like to stop it here. So thank you so much for your patient hearing. Sorry we started late, so thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for sharing notes on the impact of 3 interventions in Pulse Revolution, the structural transformation, the shift in the consumption patterns, the need of the participation of private sector in agriculture, the technological disruptions, citing examples, highlighting the lacunae, and sharing your valuable insights on many key areas which will surely inspire new thoughts and actions in this field. It is now my privilege to invite the chairman of the inaugural session to deliver the presidential address. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Kharbide Sir, Honorable Vice Chancellor, MPKV, to deliver his speech.
Good morning. For the today's Silver Jubilee National Conference on Innovation and Entrepreneurship for Rural Prosperity and Agriculture Perspective, organized by the Maharashtra Society of Agricultural Economics, Akola, Department of Agricultural Economics, Mahatma Phule Krushi Vidyapith, Rahuri. And for this function, today we are having here with the chief guest, Dr. Vidyapith Sharmaji, then our guest of honor, Honorable Pasha Patel Sahab, then President of MSAE, Dr. D.L. Sale Sahab, Dr. V. Shirke Sahab, Director of Research, MPKV Rahuri, then Dr. J.K. Sasane Sahab, Director of Extension, Dr. R.B. Hile Sahab, then Dr. Danole Sahab, Registrar, then the Dr. R.G. Deshmukh Sahab, Sursing Pawar Sahab, Progressive Farmer, then scientists, students and farmers. Here it is a great privilege for me to address the galaxy of the scientists for the Silver Jubilee National Conference of the Maharashtra Society of Agricultural Economics, organized by the Department of Economics, MPK Rahuri. This conference is a significant milestone, bringing together experts from various fields to deliberate on innovation and entrepreneurship for rural prosperity and agriculture perspective. The agriculture in India is undergoing a rapid transformation. The need of the hour is to focus on the innovative approaches, modern technologies, entrepreneurship models that can strengthen the rural economy of the India. This conference aims to provide the platform for the researchers, policymakers, faculties, students to exchange their ideas, present their research, and collaborate on strategies that enhance the agricultural sustainability and profitability. Under the MPKV umbrella, we are having here the 15 government colleges, sir, near about 767 private affiliated colleges, near about 27 agricultural research centers, agricultural research stations, and more than 45 ASRP centers. We are doing the work on education, research and extension activities for the farming community and the scientific community also, sir. During this year, we have implemented the National Education Policy 2020, and we have started with the program, with the National 2020 programs are here. Then we have at college level or at the university level, we have implemented the strengthening program, the hands-on training for the students, skill enhancement programs we have started also. We have also encouraged the students for the experiential learning program to develop the entrepreneurship among the students. At Mahatma, Phule, Krushi, Rahuri, we have taken the immense pride in our research contributions that the positively impacted the agriculture sector in India. The Department of Agricultural Economics have played a crucial role in the impact assessment studies and the policy research and marketing intelligence, helping farmers to make the informed decisions. One of the most remarkable achievements of MPK Rahuri has been that the release of near about 24 high-yielding varieties of the across 9 different crops. That varieties have significantly improved the productivity and profitability of the farmers, contributing an estimated of near about more than 51,000 crores to the farm economy. This is an testament to the university commitment to the research-driven agriculture growth. Additionally, the department has undertaken the various studies on climate-smart agriculture, resource use efficiency, agribusiness models, and that help the policymakers to design the farmers-friendly initiatives. I commend the dedications of our scientists, research workers, and the faculty members for their relentless efforts in advancing the agriculture research in the Maharashtra or the state or the national level. This conference is not just an academic event, but the movement towards creating the more prosperous, resilient agriculture sector. The discussions and recommendations that emerge from these 2 days national conference will serve as a valuable inputs for the shaping the future Indian agriculture plan and developing the different policies in case of the agricultural economics. I express my sincere gratitude to the chief guest, Dr. Phule Sahab, and all the esteemed speakers for their participation and support. I also congratulate Department of Agricultural Economics, Dr. Hile Sahab and his team, and the organizing committee for successfully hosting this landmark event. I encourage all the participants for the active participation in the discussion, share their perspectives, and make this conference with the grand success. Thank you. Best wishes for the fruitful and the insightful decisions and the conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your visionary leadership and valuable guidance. Before I officially hand over the stage to Dr. Shendage sir, let me take a moment to express my gratitude to all the sponsors, partners, and volunteers and most importantly, media personnel whose support has been invaluable in bringing this conference to life. Your commitment to fostering learning and innovation is truly commendable. Now I request Dr. Shendagi sir to extend the vote of thanks.
Thank you very much. Now I am here to propose the vote of thanks. First of all, I must thank the chairman. I must thank the today's chief guest, Dr. Vidyapith Sharmaji, Chairman CICP, for accepting our invitation with no time, immediately after accepting and delivering the and guiding this August gathering. Then, as a guest of honor, Dr. Pasha Patel Saab, Chairman APC, has also accepted our invitation and guided, came over here and guided this August gathering. Our guiding force, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Kharbade sir, who has supported and guided all the time in organizing this national conference. I must thank Dr. Kharbade sir and all the university authorities, including the Director of Research, Dr. V.S. Shirke sir, Director of Extension, Dr. J.K. Sasane sir, Registrar, Dr. Nitin Danavale sir, for guiding and supporting all the time for organizing this conference. I am also thankful to the President of the Maharashtra Society of Agriculture Economics, Dr. D.L. Sale sir, for all the time guiding and supporting this organization of this national conference. Then one of the scientists from Germany, that is Elo West Larsen, who has came over here and participated in the national conference. I am also thankful to the Secretary MSCI, Dr. R.J. Deshmukh, so Treasurer, Nagpure sir, for guiding this conference. Then I am also thankful to Vice Presidents of the MSCI, particularly Dr. Torne sir, Dr. Sende sir, More sir, for coming over here and guiding and supporting all the time. I am also thankful to ex-heads of the departments and professors, particularly Dr. Kasar sir, Dr. Yadav sir, Dr. Wadkar sir, Dr. Rahane sir, Dr. Katkade sir, Dr. Jain Gulgule sir, and all the ex-professors and heads for their presence in the national conference. Now, I am also thankful to all the associate deans, HODs, professors, heads of department for this conference. I am also thankful to all the delegates, particularly, and the principals from the affiliated colleges, particularly agribusiness management colleges of the university, to participate in this national conference. Now, I am also thankful to the guest speakers, particularly the Dr. Lata Sharma, Dr. Autade, Dr. Dinesh Shelke, who is delivering the lectures during this national conference. I am also thankful to and all the guiding force, particularly Dr. Hille sir and his entire team, to organize this national conference successfully, and the committees formed for the organization of the conference, the chairmans, the member secretary, members of all the committees. I am thankful to one and all those things. I am also thankful to the university engineer for sparing this auditorium hall for the organization of this conference. And I am also thankful to security Sri Shetty and his entire team for the security purpose. And I am also thankful to print and electronic media for giving the wide publicity for this event. With this, I must thank one and all. If anything has remained, I must thank one and all. And I stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your gracious words of gratitude on behalf of all of us. Before we conclude, as a mark of our respect and unity, let us all rise for the national anthem.
हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Bharat Mata Ki. I have small announcement. The high tea arrangement has been done outside the hall, and all the dignitaries, please come forward. We should have a photograph, common photograph. All the participants should visit outside. The high tea arrangements are there, and the dignitaries, please come forward. We will have a photograph with.
I request all the dignitaries to gather outside the auditorium for a group photo.
All the participants, kindly, I need your attention that a small presentation will be held up here just after the snacks or high tea. Please come again in the same hall for a presentation of 15 to 20 minutes. I kindly request all the participants that you will come and join again in the same hall for a short presentation.